Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at something very interesting, something that just recently showed up, and we're going to be taking a look at all of it now. Judging by the length of this, I do have to warn you right now, this could be a pretty long video. I don't know how long exactly because, I am going to stop eventually just to give you guys my thoughts, and that might make the video a bit longer than you would like. So just giving you guys a bit of a warning ahead of time before we get into this. So apparently there was this leak posted on Reddit. Now that alone should make you want to, just immediately it might want to make you take this with just a giant grain of salt. But at the same time, I would understand if someone would be more inclined to believe this, because remember, we did get those leaks from Jedi Paxis. I think it was like a couple of months before before episode 9 came out, and he turned out to be like almost 99% correct. Like seriously, I mean he pretty much told you what happened in the entire movie. So again, like if someone were to see this and if they were inclined to believe it, I wouldn't blame them. But at the same time, even the person themselves who posted this says, because he can't verify this without outing himself, and who he is, without basically doxing himself. So he himself says, take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, I read some of this, and I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit less inclined to believe this. Like, there's a lot of things here that, like, like anyone would have sort of made a guess just by, like some of the articles that have come out in the past year in regards to episode 9, and you'll see what I mean when we get into some of the details. So let's just go ahead and take a look at them. So this was posted by, I don't know who it is. It says user deleted. We'll see. So this person says, I worked on the sequel trilogy for its entire run, from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. The world has changed, as has my position in the roots of this tree. In the next coming days, weeks, and months, there will be several leaks due to shakeups at Lucasfilm. Leaks have become a part of the culture of the company. I wanted to set some matters straight before that occurred. Who am I? It doesn't matter. There's nothing I could provide to convince everyone who I was without doxing myself. Something I'm not particularly open to doing. That's understandable. Take this as gospel or with a grain of salt. Now, they say some things regarding Lucasfilm, the sequel trilogy, some closing comments about apparently regarding some questions people have, and he talks about the Abrams cut. Remember those rumors that we got about the fact that there were actually multiple cuts of the film? It seems like this person at the very least confirms that there is a different cut, one that was, I guess you could say, more Abrams' vision as opposed to the one that we got. And so I guess, again, if you were to take this, again, if you were to believe what this person says, then I think he pretty much confirmed that there were multiple cuts of the film, which again shouldn't be surprising, because I think, if I remember correctly, like Daisy Ridley herself even said, I think it was in an interview with Josh Gad, where she talked about how the writing kept changing even as the movie was getting closer to its release date. Like, she even admitted that, at one point, she was apparently supposed to be, related to Kenobi, or there were some cases where she was related to someone else, and just it kept changing over and over again. So for me, and I think I remember, I could be misremembering this, but I think I remember reading an article where someone behind the scenes admitted that they kept doing reshoots all the way up to the day that the movie released. So that's why people have speculated that this movie probably cost way more than what Disney initially said it cost. Because remember, Disney says that this movie cost somewhere around $200 million. But if there really were reshoots all the way up to the release date, then there's no way it only cost $200 million. I'm sorry, but there's just no way. It had to cost way more than that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So this is what he says in regards to Lucasfilm. There has never been a cultural civil war at Lucasfilm. Okay, so this is in regards to some of the leaks that YouTuber Overlord DVD have pointed out and said, have made videos on, where he said that he got some information from people inside Lucasfilm that apparently there's a, again, quote unquote, civil war going on at Lucasfilm between Favreau and Kennedy, whereas Kennedy wants to use, Lucasfilm as a sort of a way to push whatever agenda she wants to push, whereas Favreau wants to use it to tell a narrative. Now, again, I don't think anyone believes that there's like an open line drawn in the sand civil war. I think most people are inclined to believe that there are people within Lucasfilm who probably love the direction that Star Wars was going, and there are probably people who hate the direction it's going and wanted to basically go in the direction of being more focused on narrative and paying respect to what came before it. I think more people are inclined to believe the latter as opposed to the former, where there's like an open, like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like there's an open civil war between certain people at Lucasfilm. I don't think that's the case. Again, although let me just clarify, I don't know because I'm not there at Lucasfilm, so I can't 100% confirm whether this is true or false. This is just me taking an educated guess. Nevertheless, a disagreement on what direction to take the franchise has always been a reoccurring problem. Okay, so this person even goes on to say this. Again, if they are to be believed. Certain members of the Lucasfilm story group, Pablo, desire to see Star Wars resemble a D&D campaign, more aesthetic, less narrative. Others, i.e. Favreau and Filoni, are pushed for a more traditional approach. I'm guessing they mean more of the narrative approach. Like they want to focus more on narrative and less about the aesthetic. Which again, if it feels like he took this directly from, it feels like he saw again Overlord DVD's videos, and is making these points in his leak. I don't know, just that's just what it seems like to me. And he says there isn't some war between Kathy and Favreau. They are on rather pleasant terms. Kathy seems to want him to take over once she retires and is promoted. Okay, see, that I believe is absolute BS. I'm sorry, but considering what we know about Kathleen Kennedy and the fact that she has an ego bigger than Jupiter, I highly believe that she actually wants Favreau to take over once she retires and or is promoted. I'm sorry, to me it's like if everything Favreau wants, at least from what we've seen, seems like to be the complete opposite of what Kathy wants, and it's hard for me to believe that she actually wants Favreau to take over. Favreau may or may not take the position. Filoni isn't interested, nor is he even remotely qualified to run a film studio. He's much happier working on his own stories. Okay, so there we go. Each sequel trilogy director prioritized their scripts differently. Johnson was intoxicated with the themes, Trevor had been infatuated with the spectacle, and Abrams favored the concept. Again, this you don't need to be someone inside Lucasfilm to know this. Again, all you have to do is take a look at what happened, and you can easily guess that each director had a different vision for what he wanted for Star Wars. Like again, anyone could tell just by seeing this. You don't necessarily have to be inside Lucasfilm to know this. As to be expected, this led to very different approaches to the sequels. Some Lucasfilm fancied, others not as much. Rey being the biggest disagreement. Again, like anyone could tell just by looking at the films. Abrams initially had hoped to work with George. That didn't work out. When George walked, JJ had almost attempted the same. Iger stopped him. Lucasfilm saw the sequels as a departure from the old way into the new era. Initially, they had fuddled around with Rey being the granddaughter of Obi-Wan before settling on no one. Again, like the interview that Daisy Ridley gave with Josh Gad, you can easily make this point. Again, you don't have to be someone in Lucasfilm to know this. This is interesting. Abrams wanted Rey to be the granddaughter of Anakin, eventually pushing for her to be Luke's daughter he had with a fellow rebel after the war. Well, that's not what happened. The backstory of how Rey was left on Jakku kept changing. Luke left her with Lor San Tekka, who had once been a Force user as well, in one draft. Another draft, Kylo left her there as an act of compassion. This concept made it into the final draft of DOTF, that's Duel of the Fates, and the first draft of TROS. I mean, that would kind of be a better explanation than the fact that Papa Palpatine apparently did it with someone, had a kid, and then that kid, had a kid with someone else, and that kid turned out to be Rey, and then was just left on Jakku. Although it still doesn't explain some of the biggest problem, which is how the hell did Rey survive on her own? Abrams had seen Kylo as a tragic villain and wanted to tell a dark what-if story to the redemption of Vader. Ben Solo would have always been redeemed, but only through death. But that's exactly what happened to Vader. That's exactly what happened to Anakin. I don't get it. I don't get how it's supposed to be a what-if story to the redemption of Vader. Like, that doesn't really make any sense. Finn had likewise been a subject of controversy. Abrams wanted John Boyega to play Finn. Alan Horn, as well as additional Disney producers, saw that as a further risk, Horn pushing for an Ansel Elgort type. So basically, they wanted someone who was white and didn't want John Boyega. Now, I know this might seem pretty bad, and it does seem like it's something that that might seem a little bit too much to accuse someone of doing. But again, I don't have a problem believing this because, again, we know that Disney is a company that likes to pander to certain countries that might not be okay with certain people. So, again, I am more inclined to believe this concerning the type of Disney that the type of company that we know Disney to be. Finn being a Jedi was also something Disney producers thought was, quote, too much if John Boyega was cast. Abrams was forced to water down that subplot in TFA. Again, not really. Again, this is easier to believe because, again, Disney is... Horn was the most vocal against a romance between Finn and Rey. Risk factor playing a big part. Again, yeah, probably wouldn't really play too well in a country that isn't really a big fan of people who are like John Boyega. Let's just say that. Although, again, if this is to believe, the fact that this is coming from Alan Horn is, I don't know. Abrams would eventually asked to set up a romance between Poe and Finn when Disney requested him to not go forward with Finn and Rey, which had been refused as well. Yeah, this never would have happened. Again, we know for a fact that Disney loves money. And we know for a fact that Disney likes to air their films in as many countries as possible. Unfortunately, those countries do include ones where, they're not really okay with this kind of relationship. Let's just say they're not really okay with this kind of a relationship. And if they wanted their films to be in theaters in those countries, then they're going to have to nix this. And I don't know, to me it seems like this is like it feels like it's very pro JJ. Let's just say this. So I don't know, I get the feeling that maybe this person is probably trying to paint Abrams in like a better light than what people see him as now, because a lot of people are not fans of Abrams. A lot of people are calling out Abrams for his BS. Remember, this is the same guy who went out there and said no more white comfort, and yet this is probably one of the richest guys in Hollywood. Let's just remind you of that. This is one of the richest guys in Hollywood, and yet he's saying no more white comfort. Think about that. Lucasfilm asked Abrams to set up a romance between Poe and Rey. Abrams refused. To sum it up, Abrams was not on the same page with TPTB. I gotta admit, I don't know what that is. Maybe you guys can let me know what it is in the comments. Ryan was far more helpful with Lucasfilm, working with them instead of against them. See, that I can probably believe, especially since we know what Lucasfilm technically wanted out of Star Wars, and how Ryan is, just the less said about him, the better. Frankly, this turned out to be a mistake for Ryan due to Lucasfilm being indecisive, obviously. Stories were always being changed. Again, this is not that hard to believe. Again, all you have to do, multiple people I think have come out, again, Daisy Ridley being the biggest example of how stories kept changing and how they never actually knew what they wanted to do. And I think even Ian McDermott even came out and said that, he at first never knew that he was going to play Palpatine again. It wasn't until Abrams called him up again and said, "Hey, we're thinking about bringing Palpatine back. You want to play him again?" And he said, "Yeah." So yeah, if anyone tries to tell you that they from the beginning planned to bring Palpatine back, Ian McDermott basically came out and pretty much debunked that whole theory. Stories were okay. Abrams had pushed for a more traditional ending to the trilogy, Luke Skywalker living past the end of the sequels, instructing a new generation and his offspring. Well, again, unfortunately, that's not what happened. Lucasfilm wanted Star Wars to move past the Skywalkers, pushing for them to be retired. I mean, I guess that would... again, I wouldn't have liked it, but I guess that would have kind of made sense, considering a lot of the actors who play those characters are a lot older. So, but again, I still think it would have been awesome if we could have at the very least gotten one movie where we got to see Luke Skywalker, and I'm talking about the real Luke Skywalker. Ryan was less concerned with the beginning or ending, rather what he could do with this chapter. Lucasfilm gave him creative control just as long as he took their notes. Well, I don't know what kind of notes they gave him, but I'm pretty sure he took them, set them on fire, then threw them in the trash can. Ryan's film had undergone reshoots as well. Some changes, example, Craig being moved to the ending, Holdo going from a senator to a rebel, less romantic undertones between Rey and Kylo. I wonder why the fuck they changed that. Colin, unfortunately, was left to pick up the remains of the compromised Abrams chapter and Ryan's self-contained chapter. After many rewrites of the Duel of the Fates script, Colin and Lucasfilm parted ways. Okay, this to me is very, very interesting, this part in particular, because I don't know if you guys remember, but on another website, Pirates and Princesses, I think it's run by the guys who also own the Clownfish TV. Like they have their website, Pirates and Princesses, and someone on on that website at WDW Pro also put out an article talking about everything he knows about what's going on, everything he or she knows about what's going on in Lucasfilm. And one of the things he or she brought up is the fact that Colin, yeah, like he kept trying to talk to Lucasfilm, saying that he wanted Luke alive because he can't tell his story without Luke, and then eventually, like they ended up parting ways. So I'm wondering if, like maybe he could have gotten that from that article, or again the fact that Colin was initially hired and then eventually let go. Like everyone already knows that because Lucasfilm themselves said that, Colin wasn't directing episode 9 anymore. And I don't know, it's just the details about this seems weird to me. Again, it's reminding me a lot of that WDW Pro article. Jack Thorne wrote an additional draft to episode 9. It was deemed unusable as well. There was only one ending where Kylo lived. It was pitched after Colin's departure and before Abrams returned. The script went nowhere. Enter the return of Abrams, as well as the same conflicts from 2014 to 2015. Abrams had pitched a two-part film, part 1 to cover the aftermath of TLJ and establish his narrative, part 2 as the closure. They said no clearly, yeah. The Rise of Skywalker was a mess of different rewrites. Again, if you looked at the interview with Daisy Ridley, she pretty much confirmed this, so it's possible that this person could have gotten this from there. Not necessarily because they're an insider in Lucasfilm. The plot details for TRS provided to Jedi Paxis was not the original story of the film, rather just one of the many rewrites. Okay, this person's repeating themselves a lot. Okay, that in itself should tell you that there's probably not a lot to this leak. The earliest completed script for episode 9 under Abrams and Terrio had ended up a hybrid of TROS and Duel of the Fates. One of the working titles for the script had been named Heirs to the Force. Rose had a key role in saving the day by altering a communication jammer the First Order used to keep the galaxy in the dark. This message spread across the galaxy would have been Leia's call to help from TLJ. Well, that's not what happened, and Rose ended up being a useless character. Rey had learned she was Vader's granddaughter and reconciled her past with Luke. Finn had staged a Stormtrooper rebellion after finding a long-lost sibling. Well, there was the sort of sibling part, but not really. The Stormtrooper Rebellion, I think, was part of the Duel of the Fates script. Poe was made the leader of the Resistance, while Hux would have been made Grand Marshal of the First Order as Kylo's right-hand man. Again, I think this was in the Duel of the Fates script. Kylo would have sought to reform the galaxy, but found peace in the end and passed on. The story was scrapped before/during principal photography. Some stayed in, some was changed during the film. Disney and Lucasfilm disagreed with Abrams' finale, who felt that it needed a villain with a bigger audience presence than Kylo or Hux, expressing regret that Snow had been killed off, but now wanting to bring him back. Well, then maybe you should have made that clear, again, if this is true, to your baby boy Ryan. Abrams had faith that Adam Driver and Donald Gleason would be more than enough, and that both men would turn in a grand performance. Disney did not want to hear it. They pushed Palpatine onto Kathy, who was forced to push him onto Abrams. Abrams played ball with Palpatine, yet every week on production there were new notes from Disney or Lucasfilm. Eventually, Abrams shot 2 movies, his vision and Disney Lucasfilms. I'll give you a guess on which one got the theatrical release. It wasn't the one with Matt Smith. The cast was disappointed in the end, Boyega and Driver feeling the most robbed due to the story changes. They had been excited to film scenes together for the first scene since TFA. I feel for Kelly Marie Tran and Naomi Ackie. It's hard enough for women of color in the industry. Getting their scenes together wasn't something Abrams or Kathy want. Okay, again, he or she goes on to say about vision for there's his vision of Disney Lucasfilm. Again, This is exactly what Overlord DVD said in a video that he made about back in 2019, where he talked about how there were different cuts of the film. So I'm wondering if maybe this is where he got it from. Is there a JJ cut? Still perplexed on why everyone's calling it a JJ cut, calling it Abrams cut seems more traditional. The answer is, quote, yes and no. There is an assembly cut of what Abrams filmed before reshoots took place. It resembles his original vision. It needs some work and likely some reshoots. Only a lunatic would attempt to fund it. Though. Well, we did get the Snyder cut, so. Is there a Lucas cut? They say no. Abrams had gone to Lucas like he had gone to all other directors and got their input on 9. That's it. Lucas did not ghost direct episode 9. He gave his input on the initial script Abrams and Terrio worked on. Differences between the theatrical and Abrams cut of TROS. He says Matt Smith for one. Yeah, I mean, I think there was, I think there were some rumors going around that apparently Matt Smith was hired by Lucasfilm, but nothing ever came from it. Like we never found out why he was hired, and we never saw him in the film. And that's probably why there are a lot of people who are more inclined to believe that there are different cuts of the film, because again, Matt Smith was hired, and again, I think I remember. Initially, Hayden Christensen was supposed to appear in one of these Star Wars celebrations, but eventually he didn't show up because they canceled his appearance. And a lot of people think, well, wait a minute, why would you invite Hayden Christensen if he didn't have probably a role to play in Star Wars? Well, obviously he has now with the Obi-Wan series, so maybe it was supposed to be for that, who knows? But again, a lot of people are inclined to believe that maybe there are different cuts, because I think I remember there were different cuts of the film where Hayden Christensen was actually supposed to appear in one of them, but maybe because Lucasfilm decided not to go with that cut, they decided to cancel his appearance. Again, I don't know. It's like there are multiple things that you can take from that. Palpatine's role was constantly changed from dark spirit to possession to eventually rescued zombie clone. Original role was just a cameo for the fans, as it was in A Duel of the Fates. Rey's parents had been Luke and a, quote, Force archaeologist who found Anakin's lightsaber after the events of the OT, but before the sequel trilogy. We never learn her name in the story. So she would have been just a throwaway character. Okay. Kylo and Rey's relationship was more tragic, Rey wanting to put him out of his misery, and Kylo was just wanting to be free. There was a scene of Kylo saying goodbye to Leia, giving closure to mother and son. Jannah had been Finn's sister. I'm told this is still on the table for future stories. They were separated when they were kidnapped. Their last names were once Galfridian. Okay. Much of Rosa's subplot was dedicated to figuring out how to outsmart the First Order. Rosa and Jannah had a third act subplot of converting the jammer into the beacon to alert the galaxy for the final battle, and they became close. I'm wondering how close they would have gotten. Knowing Disney, they probably would have hinted at it, but never actually went through with it. Pride originally sold out the First Order to the Resistance. The oldest of the old guard were tired of following children. Hux and Kylo work together to find out who the spy is by leaking false information. Hux kills Pride. Coruscant was a key world for conflict between the First Order and the Resistance. Several flashbacks to Luke's life before the sequels. Luke had been looking for Mortis through Octu. Luke and Kylo would have a proper duel on Mortis. This scene was based off their confrontation in Duel of the Fates. There were hints to Poe's romantic interest in Finn, yet in the end he gives his blessing to Finn and Rey. Poe would end up convincing bounty hunter Zori to aid the fight with her fellow bounty hunters. The two became mutually interested in another. Final battle for the Resistance takes place over a giant docking bay with the First Order fleet in Coruscant. Finn leads the assault to the beacon that will call the cavalry with Rose and Jannah. He would have been wielding a green lightsaber, unknown if it was Luke's lightsaber or an Abrams Deus Ex Machina. Well, since it's Abrams, it probably would have been a Deus Ex Machina. The message to the galaxy is Leia's call to help from the Last Jedi that BB-8 recorded. Sith troopers are actually clones mixed with Phasma's DNA. Finn leads a stormtrooper rebellion of normal stormtroopers versus Sith troopers. Again, a lot of repetition. Rey offers Kylo her hand for redemption, a parallel / contrast to his offering in TLJ. Kylo rejects it. He thanks her for caring. Okay. They have their final battle. Knights of Ren would help. Finn arrives to fight them and Kylo with Rey. Knights of Ren would be killed. Kylo accepts his defeat and returns to the light as he dies. What? Jesus Christ, that sounds lame. Ben would have appeared as a Force Ghost with his mother and made amends to Rey silently. Anakin's Force Ghost would have appeared with a younger Force Ghost of Luke and Leia to say goodbye forever. The Resistance gang would have celebrated on Tatooine at the Lars homestead, Finn and Rey watching the sunrise hand in hand with Janna, Rose, Poe, Zori, Chewie, and the droids. As the Abrams cut better, he says it's a more coherent story than the theatrical release, but it's also filled with a lot of Abrams quality writing. If you don't like Abrams films, this wouldn't make you a fan of Abrams or Episode 9. Lucasfilm had thought it leaned too heavily on the fan service. Will the Abrams cut ever actually get released? Not sure. He heard some talks about it, but Bob Chapek had his hands full and is rather cheap. I also don't see a high fan campaign for this ever happening like the Snyder Cut. Yeah, I think a lot of people would just much rather pretend the sequel trilogy never happened. Personally, I favored Colin's ending chapter with Duel of the Fates more. In my honest opinion, he got Star Wars the best. Should have given him the trilogy, but that's just my own personal 2 cents. Again, they go on to say there will be more coming, whether it's from me, maybe not. I can't provide much personal info without putting myself at risk. Take this however you want. I'm attempting to get this out for the sake of the truth. May the Force be with you. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this, I didn't know what it meant, but now it's May the Force be with you. And that's it. And then this person says, the content of this post is unverified and should be read with healthy skepticism. To those who have reported this post because it is likely misinformation, we traditionally think these posts are for 2 reasons. Despite our doubts, many leaks that we initially thought were false have ended up being discovered to be true in retrospect. Just like the Jedi Paxis leaks. By leaving this post up, we can hold the leaker accountable to the truth if and when contradictory information emerges. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Again, from reading this, it seems like it's probably from someone who, again, wants to paint Abrams in a better light than what a lot of people see him as. It's just, to me, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of things that, again, you could have easily said this. Anyone could easily say this just by looking at some of the information we've been getting over the years. Some of the things that, again, like I said, some of them did feel like they came from the WDW Pro article. And some of them, again, it feels like he got them straight from, some of Overlord DVD's videos that he made about about some of the information that he got from some of the behind the scenes goings on in Lucasfilm. Although, again, he himself does say, again, let me just repeat this, because a lot of people tend to forget this. He himself says, because he can't confirm that himself, take it with a grain of salt. All he can confirm is that he got this information. Again, I see a lot of people trying to paint him as someone who isn't. And again, all you have to do is look at his videos and you'll be able to see that is completely false. So what do I think about this? Again, like I said, it feels like to me this is coming from someone who's just a big fan of Abrams and wants to sort of, make people think better of him than what they do now. But at the same time, again, like what was said here, I'm not going to say whether or not there is or isn't any truth to these leaks, because at the same time, like I said, we got the Jedi Paxis leaks, and a lot of people probably thought that wasn't true at all, and then the movie came out and he turned out to be 100% correct. So again, there is a high chance that this is indeed true. So I don't know. Again, you know what? I will leave it up to you guys. Do you guys think there's any truth to this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you like this video and if you want to see more from me, remember to leave a like, share the video, and subscribe, and click the bell icon, especially if you want to be notified whenever I post a new video and whenever I go live. And with all of that said and out of the way, remember to stay safe and take care of yourselves as always, and then join me for the next video. Bye for now.